You know what nobody else says? Nobody
More.
else
Give us
says.
more of this. Oh, what were you going to say?
No, I gotta plug something. This is just a real quick plug, but it's not capitalistic and commercial in nature. It's because it's a great thing that we just got, both of us. Our friend Scott Teal at crowbarpress.com has published a book by Richard Vicek, who did the Bruiser, Dick the Bruiser biography a few years ago, and Stephen Verrier, who did, help me.
He did Gene Kiniski. He did Canadian.
Well, now
Wrestling
not in a
History.
biblical way.
He did Gene Kiniski. No, he did the Gene Kiniski biography. He did.
Yes.
He's been working on various wrestling history projects.
Kiniski, but then that Kiniski book was like Kiniski, very thick. But anyway, they do wonderful research, and the book is Wilbur Snyder, the world's most scientific wrestler. And you go to crowbarpress.com for information about this and a whole lot more. But I haven't even, I had to jump into some of the partnership between Dick the Bruiser and Wilbur Snyder that led to the formation of the WWA in Indianapolis, because that is with the first wrestling that I actually ever saw. And I'm fascinated, wanting to know more. And we've studied Tennessee, and I was here so much and heard so many of the stories. So much of this is new. But without even getting into a review of the book, because I haven't read the whole thing, just a factoid. They even got, because Vicek has done numerous interviews, as I said, with the Bruiser book, but for years he's done interviews about the WWA, and they talked to Mike Snyder, Wilbur's son here, and have personal documents from the family. But he saw Bruiser's actual book, Bruiser's book. We always talk about, oh, the guy, they showed his book. Well, he's seen Bruiser's book. And with Bruiser, Snyder, and Vern Gagne, partners in Chicago, Brian, as we've talked about, in the 60s, and Chicago coming back to somewhat of its former glory after Jack Fever got finished with it. 2 shows in Chicago, March 11th and April 15th, 1967. Dick the Bruiser as a main event wrestler and as one of the 3 partners in the promotion of the town. For those 2 shows, Bruiser made $6,400, which doesn't sound massive, but in 1967, in 2025 money, that's $61,000 for Dick the median household income in the United States for a family per year in 1967 was $7,200. He made $6,400 in 2 nights. In, again, a fucking company that he owned, and he could do whatever he wanted. The rest of the month was more fucking money that he got the first count on.
That's put a urinal in your house kind of money.
Boy, he pissed it away, literally. Do people even understand? Dick the Bruiser, not only in his master bedroom, not only had the biggest custom-made bed possibly in the world, his bed was 20 feet wide, but in his master bathroom, he had the only urinal in a private residence in Indianapolis, because it made him feel more like he was in the locker room.
Well, that book is
but anyway,
and hold on. I got here, as you said, there's also a book, Ed Don George, The Remarkable Life of an Olympian and Pro Wrestling Champion by Dan Murphy. So for those of you into Buffalo wrestling history, and the Joel Goodhart biography, it's actually an interview that Scott Teal did with him. We wrestled, we brawled, we started it all. By Joel Goodhart and Scott Teal.
Okay, now we're basically, poor Scott, I must say, in his defense, is in this case the transcriber and interviewer and questioner, but certainly don't blame him for anything that might be said that is in any way related to bullshit.
Well, once again, these are all available at crowbarpress.com. For everyone who gets in touch and says, how can I learn about wrestling history beyond the show? Crowbarpress.com. Mention you heard it here, You get a free Scott Teal autograph. That's the way they do it.
And you know what Dennis Coralluzzo used to use as their tagline? Because their tagline in the TWA was "We wrestle, we brawl, we do it all." And Dennis said, "No, it's we wrestle, we brawl, we can't fill the hall."
What do you think of Dennis's? How much of it was personal? He didn't get along with the people, and how much of it was territorial in terms of, the problems over the years? Dennis and Goodhart, Dennis and Todd Gordon, Dennis and Heyman. How much of it? Because Paul Heyman and Dennis never got along. I can't speak to Todd Gordon and Dennis. I don't think they got along too much, although Todd Gordon ended up working for him at some point. Not like in the office or anything, but like as a manager.
Yeah, on his show. Well, yeah. No, but remember then on that big Eddie Gilbert anniversary show, that's when they walked out and blamed me because I told Dennis change the finish. Remember? He came up to me complaining. I'm sorry, this is not even where we were going, but jot it down and we'll come back there. But on one of those big Eddie Gilbert memorial shows or something.
No, it was the NWA 50th anniversary.
The NWA 50th anniversary that was in a hotel ballroom there. Help me, where was it?
It was in Philly.
In Philly, by the airport at a hotel ballroom thing.
Yeah.
And, again, Dennis is there and because he's always sweating and he's drinking tea and he's fucking, Jimmy. I got all these guys and I don't know if I'm going to do that thing. And I said, well, what's the matter? Well, he had some kind of fakakta 10-person tag team cage thing for the main event. I don't know if you may remember, you probably got the program, but it was involving Todd Gordon and invaders from whatever, I don't know what, from the local ex-ECW group or whatever, and goddamn Dennis's guys. And he said, then we did this, we did that, and now I got to pay all these guys, and Gordon wants this, and now they're going to come back with us. So I said, why are you bringing it back? If you don't like it, you don't want to do it, and you don't want to pay all these fucking people, why are you bringing it back? He said, well, that's what they laid out. I said, well, fucking, they laid it out, or they fucking paying themselves? No, you're paying them, so you lay it out. Just fucking beat them if you want to. He said, okay, I will. So he sent word he was going to beat them, and they all walked out.
Yeah, because that day, there was a convention during the day, and Todd Gordon and the Sandman were holding court. They had a good crowd around them. Everyone's laughing. Next thing you know, they're gone.
Yeah.
And it created a really awkward situation. That was a weird show. Ray Odyssey, I think, got like really badly concussed or something. Because next thing I know, he was like down on the ground, surrounded by paramedics in the hallway. And Missy Hyatt was like leading the way. Because at that time, I think she was training to be a paramedic, or she was a paramedic. And then because Todd left.
The next time I saw Missy, they were calling a paramedic on her.
What? No, what I was going to say.
At the Pillman Memorial.
Wait, what happened?
They called the paramedics on her and Sonny, bless them.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, I think maybe more Tammy, but it didn't look like Missy was going in the right direction either that day. And and I'm not trying to start anything, but I love Missy. But Les Thatcher came up to me and said, go talk to Missy. I said, I'm sorry, what? He said, go over there quick and talk to Missy. She's standing in the hall, like where the gym was. She's underneath the bleachers or whatever, and not out in the arena, but she's in the hallway. Just go talk to Missy and make sure she doesn't go to the ring. What? So I go, hey, Missy, how you doing? Haven't seen you in a while, blah, blah, blah. And and she didn't look like she was trying to go to the ring. I didn't have to physically restrain her, but after a few minutes, I'm thinking, why am I just standing here? What the fuck is going on here? And I just said, Missy, stay here. I'll be right back. And I just left and I didn't see either one of them again. I think the paramedics were called shortly after for somebody. Let me just say that. I don't want to spread any allegation.
It's interesting because the show we're talking about, when Todd left, it was Missy Hyatt that they talked into leading the heel faction against Doug Gilbert and the NWA, and they had a weird scene where, like, to somehow explain to the fans following this storyline, which was like nobody, to explain to them what's going on, Missy Hyatt all of a sudden came on to Doug, and Doug rejected it because he would never, and that started the main event match. But it was a weird era where you could see people that you had seen on TV really fucked up, because that was the day that William Regal.
I was going to ask you that, because that's why.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Because that was the day you came up to me. Funny enough, it was you and Doug Gilbert in the back of the room talking, and I was right next to you guys. And this is a cool moment for me as a teenager. You turned to me and you said, because you realized what was happening, it was Dan Severn against William Regal. William Regal had his boots on the wrong feet.
Yeah.
And you said, Brian, you're smart. And that was like the biggest compliment ever. Brian, you're smart. Go to the ring announcer and tell him in 1 minute to announce that 5 minutes have gone by. Tell him then to count another 3 minutes and announce 10 minutes have gone by. And we were just skimming time in real time. It was crazy.
Well, and again, I don't want to just dangle the incomplete story there. And we're not, again, I think William Regal has written about it, I believe, in his book. We're not trying to slander him, but one of the things that Dennis had put together for the NWA 50th anniversary was Dan Severn. Again, I can't remember where the UFC was at this point in time, probably not yet, but Dan Severn, one of the most decorated amateur or collegiate wrestlers in general that the world has ever produced and the United States has ever produced, and the former NWA champion, and he can fucking wrestle. And have him against William Regal, who at that point, Brian, we were tried because JR was there, remember?
Yeah, there were a bunch of students. You actually brought up, there was a battle royal with the students, so I mean, there was a big WWF presence.
But we were trying to get William Regal over some way to get started in WWE or WWF at that point in time, right? Or get a second chance.
Get a second chance, I think.
That's what it was, the second chance thing. And had JR come down and said, "What, he's going to wrestle, Dan Severn." And JR came down from fucking his exile in Connecticut up there, or that miserable overpriced hellhole, as he said. And as soon as they go to the ring, well, but even before, as you said, William Regal had his boots on the wrong feet and went out and, Dan later on was like, what could I have done besides just, take it and fucking, be disrespectful.
If it had been someone like, Ric Flair in his prime or something, maybe they could have hit a good portion of it, because it's not like they didn't deal with situations like that at times with like Kerry Von Erich or something. But there's only so much you could do. Dan Severn, if you weren't going to carry Dan Severn, I don't know if carry's even the right word. I mean,
well, no, if
he wasn't going to lead the match.
But remember, we totally wanted him to have this wrestling match, and William Regal's trying to do all the wrestling shit, but he can't do it. And Dan is like, "What the fuck? I can't just start doing drop kicks and shit, and I could take this match, but then I'm beating the guy who didn't realize how bad he was. I'm beating him for real." And why, he just was like trying to wrestle and it went on forever. Ever. And that's why because I realized I can't even remember who the timekeeper, ring announcer, whoever was, but we had to send you with the directions on how. We couldn't just say shave time. We had to explain the process of the shaving of the time, because as you know, Jerry, it's not the wanting to shave the time. It's the actual shaving of the time. And then he wouldn't listen to it.
It went, and even with the shaving of the time, it went way too long. That's right.
Yeah. And then JR had to go back and report what he had seen. So
that was a cool weekend, though, because that was also Cauliflower Alley in the Northeast. So you had Fred Blassie there. You had, I think Tully Blanchard actually may have been there. You had Abdullah the Butcher. He had like a weird cast of people there. It was like a really cool wrestling weekend.
Well, all those people, thank you for that assessment of their character. Yeah, a bunch of weirdos.
When it comes to general society, looking at this group of people I just named, Fred Blassie, Abdullah the Butcher, and Tully Blanchard, yeah, they're the weirdos, I think. They may not be in real life, but, you know, judging a book by its cover, by his gold lame outfit and the guy eating a fork, yeah, they're weird. This is your show.
No, it's not.
Ah. Well, this has been Crowbar Press Talk. Once again, crowbarpress.com. I don't know if any of these stories are in those books, but there are great stories for you to learn in those books.